Hello, I'm Sean from Booksource, the company that created Booksource Classroom. I will be your guide through a series of videos to help you better understand Booksource Classroom and its many features. In this video, I'll be talking about the library page. In addition to the library page, we're going to be showing you the page itself, we're going to show you title details, and we're going to show you how to add books, as well as check out and return books. So let's get into it. First step is we need to sign in. After we sign in, I will select the teacher area. From our dashboard, we will go over to the Library Page tab, which should look just like this on the left-hand side. If you're on mobile, this might look a little bit different, but you can still access it from the mobile main menu. The library page is likely where you will spend most of your time in Booksource Classroom. This is where you can see all of the books in your library, you can add books to your library, you can manage the checkout and returns of books to your library, and you can gain many insightful insights into the books of your library. There are a few different ways to put books into the library. The first one is you can import via a Booksource invoice. This is by far the easiest way. This would be this import tab at the top right up here. You can also import books by adding them directly. We will show you that in just a few minutes. So if we look here, these are all of the books that are in my library. You can see page numbers down here, and you can also toggle the amount of books per page that you want to show from 50 to 100. You can sort the books differently by title, author, genre, location, date added, copies, ratings, and popularity. Popularity is particularly useful if you want to find out which books are actually being read in your library and which ones aren't being read so much. Maybe those books are good for a new update or for swapping out with some other titles. You can also quickly see which books are checked out by clicking this icon. And I can see that I have 3 books checked out. Notice that these 2 are red. That means that those books are overdue. You could also see overdue books by clicking View Overdue here in the top near the menu. So if I click on, or if I roll over one of these books, you'll see Return as an option. I can click on Return and see that Billy W. has this book 4 days overdue. I have an option to renew that book, or I can return that book. If there are multiple books checked out, multiple copies of this book, I could also manage all of those at one time by saying just return all of them. In addition, I can go to the checked out books again, and I will be able to see that I have an option to return this book as well. Now, if some of these books had multiple copies, you would see 2 different options whenever you go to check out the book. One would be this return icon that we've already covered, and the other would be this checkout icon. If I click to check a book out, you will notice the book's unique tracking ID will show up here. And then after I type in the student's name, it will autocomplete and I can select the right student to check that book out to. And you will notice the book has been checked out. Now I can also go and return that book or renew it as I see fit. So you can also click on a title to view all the information about that title. In this case, let's click on this book. Now we will see the title information, the author. We can get all the details of this book, including what's published, what series it belongs to, page counts, word counts, etc. You can also see the interest level, guided reading level, Lexile, and AR. We automatically import all of these titles whenever a book is Booksource verified. We have another video that covers what Booksource verified means in detail, but to be short, it means that our literacy experts at Booksource have looked at this book, and many times we have read the entire book, and we have double-checked all of the information that the publisher provided, and then we make sure that that information is actually accurate. Many times a publisher may overextend the range of leveling on a book in order to appeal to a wider audience, and Booksource will actually vet that book and make sure that it fits into the appropriate audience range. We also have Booksource subjects. These are subjects that our Booksource literacy experts actually add to each and every book that we verify. These are not the same as genres. These are actually unique codes that are applied to each book that are very, very specific. For example, African American Heritage and Culture, Biography, Courage, Guided Reading Level X, History, and 13 more. In addition to this basic information, you can also manage the copies of a book, and it's very easy to add new copies. Right now we have one copy, it does not have a location, and the condition is good. It's checked out to Lily T. We can also renew or return the book here. The difference between this tracking ID and the custom ID is the tracking ID is not changeable by the user. This is a unique identifier for this physical copy of a book across our entire system. So if your entire school is using Booksource Classroom and you find a book in a hallway, you could actually tell exactly which classroom that book belongs to by using the tracking ID. Custom ID defaults to the same as tracking ID when you create the book or the copy, but if you have an existing copy ID structure in your school, you can also override this and change it to whatever you want. It's easy to add a new copy. I can just say add book, and then a new copy will appear, and you can see it has a new tracking ID. I can also check out that book just as easy as we did on the previous screen. I can start typing in a name, and there we go, that book is now checked out. If I want to check it back in, that's all I have to do. If I want to delete a copy, delete, confirm, and that's all we have to do. This book doesn't have any reviews in the system, but reviews are an optional feature, and you can disable or enable reviews as you see fit. Right now, this is just showing us that we don't have any, but if we did, it would show all of them here in a list. Now the history of a book, that's also going to show everything that has ever happened in the history of this book, and you can see the title was added, and the title was checked out by Lily T up here. If we were to refresh this page, we would also see that we previously had another title that was checked out by another student. I can also edit titles on this page. This edit icon up here, if you click that, you can edit any of this information. Now you'll notice that ISBN is not editable, and that's because, as this icon indicates, this is a Booksource verified book. We know for sure that this is the actual ISBN that this book uses. You also cannot update the cover image for this book because we know for sure that this is the cover image that this book uses. Any books that you add that are not recognized by Booksource, you will be able to edit any of this information, including the book cover. But by far, if the book is Booksource verified, it will be the easiest way to manage your system, as all of this information is automatically pulled over and you don't have to type in anything. As far as the Booksource verified as well is concerned, that means that also any book that you purchase from Booksource is automatically going to be Booksource verified. And of course, Booksource Classroom does tend to work best with books that are purchased from Booksource. Please go to booksource.com to learn more about why you should actually use Booksource for purchasing your books if you haven't learned about us before. So now we're going to go back to the library page. And after all of our books load up, I will show you one last icon, which is this Export to Excel feature. You can actually export your entire library to Excel, change columns, and then import those via Excel back into your library. This is useful if you need to make many different changes. Another interesting feature is you can use this advanced search feature. If I click on search, there are many different options to search through your library. I can search for phrases or terms, and as an example, I will type in citizen. Let me search for this. Okay, so I have 4 results. I can also edit that advanced search and see that 2 came back because of title matches, 1 because of author, and 1 because of annotation. Let me uncheck title and author, search again, and this is the book that returned because of a match in the annotation. I can also search by title data like fiction and nonfiction, the page count, minimum and maximum word counts. I can search by leveling information, so what is the high to low interest level range that I want to use, or guided reading or Lexile, even AR. You can also search by books that are missing information. This is important if, for example, you want to make sure your library is complete, and maybe you added in books that weren't Booksource verified. Well, you can click here and you can see all the books that might be missing, for example, an author. Search for those books and you would be able to find all of them right away so that you can easily click on those titles and edit them. Or you could also export them to Excel and edit them that way, just like we had explained earlier. So that's basically what the library page is all about. Now let's talk about adding books to your library. So again, you can import books one of 2 ways. You can click Import, and then you can click From Invoice if you have a Booksource invoice. We provide these easy-to-follow methods to actually import books into your library via your account number. If you look up your account number, it will show all of the orders that your account has created. It will tell you if they've been imported before, And you can actually click on individual titles or collections within those invoices to import. It's a very powerful feature if you're a Booksource customer. If you're not a Booksource customer, or you're just adding some books that were not purchased from Booksource, you can also go back to the library page and you can click on Add Books. It's the same link as over here that says Add Books on the left. But let's click this button. We can add books. Now you're going to go through a short little tutorial the first time you use this page. So as we can see, you can scan ISBNs with a barcode scanner, or you could just type them in. You could also scan with your device's camera. This could be your laptop camera, it could be your phone camera, it could be an iPad camera, anything that you have, you can actually use that to scan your books in. You can also set locations as you add books in. For example, let's say you already have books that are in certain locations or certain bins, and you want to make sure that they're automatically added to those locations in Booksource Classroom as you scan them in. That is also an option. So first, I'm going to show what it's like to type in an ISBN. I already have some auto-filled, but it would be the same as typing. And I can say, add. So in this case, this is a Booksource recognized title, and it has all the title, the author, the ISBN, tracking ID, custom ID, location, and condition are already added. Condition is an optional field that you can also manage in your settings. Now, this is also already imported in all of the leveling data. You just don't see it on the screen until you go back to the library and click on this title. Now let's say I want to set a location. I will do ES3. Okay, so I want to add a blank title to ES3. As you can see, without typing in anything, I can add a completely blank title. And the location is now ES3 as opposed to the previous, which is none. Now I can actually edit this title to whatever I want it to be. I will call this example title and example author. We know that some books don't have ISBNs, so this is great for some of your older books that you have. Now you can also skip between these and say, I want to add another blank book, or I want to scan another book that Booksource does not recognize. If we do not recognize the book, it will also show up as this with an unknown title and an unknown author. So, example book 2, example author 2. And you can see the details are automatically saved. Now I can also go here and say example authors plural. And you'll notice it changes here, but it does not change up here because these are two separate books. You can also add multiple copies of a book. We had already added Who Eats What, but now we added another copy. You'll notice that the tracking ID on this book and the copy ID is different from the previous book that we had added. So this is a helpful way to add multiple books in all at the same time. Now let's talk about scanning in books via the camera icon. I can click this camera icon here, and then I will be able to scan books with my device's camera. So as I can see here, it's been a success, and I have now added that book into my library. We don't know about the author, but you can always add that in. And that's how easy it is to actually add books into Booksource Classroom. Now if we go back to our library, we will quickly see that those books are now there. Let's search by National Geographic. Search. And that's the book that we added, National Parks. If I go to check this out, you'll notice that there are 2 copies there, just like I had added. So now that we've seen how to add books, there's also an option for returning and checking books back in. Now we already saw how you can do that on title details and how you can also roll over a book and check that book back in, just like we can see here. However, there's another method that's far more powerful. On the left-hand side, you can see checkouts and returns. If I click on this, this looks a lot different. This is actually incorporating a couple different new features that we've introduced to Booksource Classroom. Number one, we heard that a lot of users receive stacks of books and they want to be able to just check them in by scanning. Well now, just as we did on the Add Books page, you can actually scan in a title here, or scan it in with your camera, or type it in, and it will automatically move it from the checked out list and check it back in for that student, and it will move it into whatever appropriate category you have set up in your account. Now in this case, in my library, when I say that I want to return this book, I just click that I want to return it, and it moves it over into this quarantine section. Quarantine is a feature that allows you to physically quarantine books for the safety of your students after they've been checked in. As long as this book is in quarantine, it cannot be accessed by the students in their portal. this can only be accessed by students after you mark the book as being put back. And what I mean by that is, let's move this one over to quarantine. And now let's say Bambino and Mr. Twain, I want to actually move this directly into, okay, it's past quarantine, I want to just move it out. Alright, well that's all on fine, except for this is a physical book that was in physical quarantine, and you still need to put it back on the shelf so that your students can find it. So you can print off a list here of all the titles that need put back, and you can actually put them back manually that way. And afterwards, you can check off individual titles or say, okay, they've all been put back. And only at this time can students access the books in their digital portal. Now, quarantine is optional, as well as the need put back column. You do not have to use these two if you do not want to. You can choose either or, and that is all available in the settings. You can learn more about that in some of the videos we have about the settings of Booksource Classroom. But hopefully this will help you and your classroom in managing these trying times and various different scenarios that you might find happening in your classroom. I hope this video has been helpful, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about Booksource Classroom. Be sure to check out the other helpful videos in this channel.